everybody, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I'm going to do a video for you that was a design by Gianna Zimmerman, and it's featuring our RounDuo beads here in the middle. This is actually going to be in one of the magazines in the UK, which is Making Jewelry, and if you happen to get that magazine or you've gotten that magazine, check it out inside there. And we are calling this bracelet the Fleur-Des Duos, and the Fleur-Des Duos has to do with the RounDuo name. So it kind of has that kind of fleur-de-lis flower shape to it. The bracelet is primarily going to be using a peyote stitch, and we're going to be doing this with 2 needles. If you need any of the materials to do this Fleur-Des Duos bracelet, you can go to the top right-hand corner here, and there's a little eye at the top of the video. That's information from us as the supplier of the video to give you guys, which will have links to the different products if you want to purchase them from us online. For the bracelet design, you are going to be using our RounDuo beads. So if you're unfamiliar with them, they are our 2-hold round bead, and they are a 5mm bead. Here in the bracelet design that I did according to Gianna's exact instructions, we have a super duo in the middle as well, and you're going to need about approximately 12 of the RounDuo beads, give or take depending on your size wrist. In addition to those RounDuo beads here in the pastel Bordeaux, I'm going to be picking up the aluminum silver in the RounDuo beads and using them in the design that we work together with. Like I said, in her design, Gianna uses the super duos as part of her middle basis between the little fleur-de-lis there. I'm going to be switching it up, adding a little bling, and using some SS20 Rose Montees. The color that I'll be using is the Emerald AB color, and you're going to need approximately 11 to 12 of those Montees. If you have a smaller wrist, 10 may do it for you. Those Montees are going to take the place of the Super Duo, which the Super Duo I have here are the Jet Dark Travertine right along in the middle. In addition to that, we're using simple basic materials, 15-0s, 11-0s, and 8-0 seed beads. For the 15-0s, I'm going to be using the Duracoat Galvanized Champagne color. I like that kind of muted, nice, vintagey gold, which will bring the gold and silver both into the bracelet. That way you can wear it with whatever you want. For my 11-0, I am using the Galvanized Green Steel 11-0. And I should have mentioned at the start, these are all the Miyuki brand. You could use Toho as well. The Toho seed beads are just a tiny bit bigger, so keep that in mind when you're doing your design. And then for my 8-0, I'm using Picasso Olivine. And that's a nice kind of greenish Picasso-y look to it. So these are kind of the seed bead colors, and then with that AB Monte, it's really going to kind of bring in some other blues and greens and sparkle like crazy. The whole bracelet is going to be closed off with one of our cup buttons, and this cup button here is the Turquoise Travertine, or the Turquoise Picasso rather, cup button, and that has that nice green Picasso finish like my 8-0 seed bead, so I think it'll blend really, really nicely. The whole bracelet, like I said, is done in a peyote fashion with 2 needles. We're going to be doing peyote on one side and peyote basically on the other side of our gaps between our RounDuos. For the peyote stitch, we're going to be using size 12 beading needles, and I prefer the Pony brand needle. I know Gianna likes the John James needle. A lot of people like the tulip needle. Whatever you want to use, it's kind of up to you. An 11 or a 12 is what I would recommend. 12 is going to fit through your beads the easiest. In addition to the 2 12 needles, you're going to need some thread. I'm choosing Wildfire 0.006 beading thread in the green color because it's going to match nicely with my greenish blue hues that I have going on here. In addition to my actual beads, thread, and needle, I have a couple tools sitting near me. My first is my Thread Zap 2 by Beadsmith. This is a thread burner. There's also the Ultra and the Wildfire cord cutter. They all do the same thing. Basically, the tip heats up and that can burn your thread. I'll use that to burn the thread off the spool, as well as to burn down the ends of the thread, because inevitably this bracelet uses a lot of thread, and you'll have a point where you have to add more thread. At that connection point, I'll burn down the extra little thread there with this Thread Zap. In addition to the thread zap, I do have a pliers sitting handy. I like the pliers because it helps if you do bend your needle a little bit to straighten out the needle. It also helps to take the end of your thread once you do burn it and flatten it out completely, so that way it makes it easier to thread your needle. I'm also working on a nice workable surface. You have a bead mat, a bead on it board, a bead board, whatever is easiest for you to kind of move around and work with. You'd want to pick that up as well. In addition to that, I have some super new glue sitting handy in case you do want to glue off the knots at the very end of the thread. That's kind of up to you. To get started, we are going to be starting with our button end. Since I started with the loop end here, I'll change it up and start with a button end, and we'll end with the loop. And I want about 5 feet of beading thread with a needle on either end of the thread. The thread in itself, you'll need more than that 5 feet, but you're just going to get started with 5 feet. Anything more than that, I feel like it gets kind of tangled. You could do 6, but anything more than that, I really discourage, because then your threads get all tangled. I also forgot to mention that below this video is a little description of the video. That has the date that the video was produced, some information about it, and also if you do click down on the little show more button, that'll also give you links to all of these different products online as well. So go ahead and get your 5 feet of beading thread with a needle on each end and pour out and make little piles of all of your beads and get ready to get started. So as I stated before, I'm going to start with my button end of my clasp. To bring a little bit of the gold and a little bit of the green into the button, I'm going to pick up with my needle a 15, 11, 15. Once you have those on your needle, let them drop down. And now we're going to put on the cup button. Put on your cup button dome side down so that one needle is coming out one hole of the button and one needle is coming out the other hole of the button. Let those drop down and make sure that you're holding your needles even, so that way you are holding the thread even at the very, very end. From there, coming out, I'm going to use 3 15-0 seed beads on either needle. So go ahead and put 3 on the right and then 3 on the left as well. Let those also drop down next to your cup button. From there, pick up an 11-0 and we're going to crisscross through that 11-0, meaning one needle is going to go from right to left and the other needle from left to right. Pull the thread then down, making sure that you are still in the middle of the button. That's going to give a nice little V there at the end of the button and make it easy for you to clasp. Because this bracelet does not come back up the project, we're going to use this opportunity to reinforce the clasp. To reinforce the clasp, the thread that's on the right hand side is going to go through the 15-0s on the right, up through the back of the button, through the seed beads at the top of the button there, and down the other side, through the 15s, and out through the 11. If you want to, you're more than welcome to go ahead and do that a third time with the left needle. I'm good with 2, and I'm just going to stop there. From there, now we're going to actually start our design. To start our design, we're going to add 3 of our 15-0s on either needle. So 3 on the right. Grab my left needle here, and we'll put 3 on the left. If you're a person that is really right hand or left hand dominant, you can always put your needle down, use 1 needle at a time rather than picking up 2. There we have kind of our start to our design. So we have our 3 beads on either side, and we're now going to pick up our first of our RounDuo bead. So the RounDuos again have 2 holes, and we're going to pick up 1 hole, and just like we crisscrossed through the 11-0 seed bead, crisscross through 1 hole of the RounDuo. 1 needle going right to left and the other left to right. When I pull that down, The 15 O's there are just going to kind of sit right along the top and hug on to that RounDuo bead. From there, I'm going to step from the first hole to the second hole of the RounDuo. To do so, grab another 15O seed bead and take your thread that's on the right, go through the second hole of the RounDuo from the right to the left. That 15 then is just going to kind of sit on the side there. With the left needle, do the same thing. Generally speaking, whatever is done with the left side when you're working with multiple needles is also done on the right. For this project, that's true the entire way. So I now have a 15O that's kind of floating on the outside between my RounDuo holes, which you can see there on the side. This first one, you may see a tiny bit of the thread. If you want to exchange the 15O for an 11O, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm doing the 11O because that's what continues in the pattern. From here, coming out the 11O or the RounDuo, the pattern is going to be a 15O on both the right needle and the left needle, and then picking up my first Monte. The Montes, if you haven't worked with them, have a cross back, so they have one hole that goes one way and one hole that goes the other way. We are going to string through one thread going one way and one thread going the other way. For this first Monte, it does not matter what direction it's sitting, if it's face up or face down. For all the ones after this, it is going to matter and make a difference. So that Monte is going to sit right next to the actual RounDuo bead. From there, add a 15 on both your right needle and your left needle. If you would like to do a super duo, instead of just the super duo, you're going to add an 11O after the 15O, then the super duo, having one needle go through one hole, one needle go through the other hole, and then an 11O and a 15O. After I have my grouping here of the 15 and the Montes, I'm going to go ahead and crisscross through another one of my RounDuo beads. So the RounDuo bead is going to go on, crisscrossing one thread through from right to left and the other from left to right. And give a little tight pull. That's going to get this center line then of my bracelet started. From here, I'm going to go back and do my peyote stitch along the sides. To do the peyote stitch along the sides, we're going to pick up 11 of our 15O seed beads on both the right and the left needle. So you want to count to 11. Once you have 11 on, you just want to make sure that your count is correct, that you definitely have 11 on the needle. Let it drop down next to the RounDuo, and again, we're just through one hole of the second RounDuo. And you're going to come up to the previous RounDuo, going through the hole that's closest to the Monte, which would be the second hole of that aluminum RounDuo. Those seed beads then are just going to sit angled right there in a loop on the side. Stick your right needle down, pick up your left needle, and do the same thing. 11 seed beads go on the side. Once I have those 11, again, we're repeating. So the left-hand needle now is going to come from the left-hand side, go through that same bottom hole of the RounDuo above, and come on over to the opposite side. Give a nice little tight pull, and then we'll get ready to start the exterior of our peyote. So to start a peyote, I'm going to just use my right-hand needle and just work with my right side first. You're going to go through the first 11-0 seed bead. You're going to kind of have to hold a little bit the thread on the left to make sure that this little grouping here stays. And now we're going to add in 11-0 seed beads in a peyote fashion. If you don't know peyote, you may want to watch one of my other videos teaching you peyote before you do this. However, it's quite simple. We're coming out of one of our 15-0s. We're going to skip the next one, which would be the second bead, and we are going to sew through the third bead. That's going to put an 11-0 on the outside of that row. Next, pick up an 11-0, skip bead number 4, and sew through bead number 5 in the row of 15s. Give a nice tight pull. Again, pick up a bead, skip a bead, sew through 7. Again, pick up, sew through. So you're going to end up doing this peyote stitch here and getting that peyote started by adding in 5 of your 11-0 seed beads. When you add in the last 11-0 seed bead, you're going to go through the last 15 as well as through the round duo and coming out then on the left-hand side. Give a nice tight pull for there and just kind of pull in the thread on that bottom to make sure that it's nice and tight. Again, on the left-hand side now, I'm going to do the same thing. So the left-hand side, you're going to sew through your first 15-0 on the left, add an 11, skip bead number 2, and sew through bead 3. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my 5 11-0 seed beads, then I'm going to sew through my round duo, and I'll pick up to get ready to add my next row of peyote. After adding in the 11-0s to the peyote, now we're going to increase in size to the 8-0s. To add the next row to the peyote stitch after coming out the round duo, take your needle and thread through the 11-0 closest to the round duo, as well as, through the 15-0, as well as the 11-0. It's actually called kind of stepping up. From there, you're going to add in 4 of your 8-0 seed beads. These 8-0s then will sit right between the 11-0 seed beads. So you're peyote stitching in the 8-0s. So you're just grabbing one 8-0 and then sewing through the next 11-0. After you have 4 in, you're going to do a step down where you're going through the 11 as well as the 15 that is closest to the round duo. Give a nice little tight yank and sew again through that bottom hole of the round duo above the Monte. Again, on the left-hand side here, I'm going to repeat the same thing, and then we'll get ready to put in our final row of our peyote. For the last row in the peyote stitch, when you're coming out of your round duo bead, you're going to step up through the 15, the first 11, and the first 8 bead. From there, going through the 8-0 seed beads, add in 2 15-0s between each 8. So I've done it on the right side, and I'm going to do it on the left side here too. Picking up 2 15s, sew through the 8-0 seed bead. So you are decreasing the amount of basically passes of the peyote by doing that step up. So the last row, we added 4 8-0s. The row before that, we added 5 11-0s. This time we're just adding 3 components, but they happen to be doubled. When you're out the last 8-0 seed bead, what I want you to do is take your needle through the 11, the 15, so always the first one's closest to the round duo that you're coming upon. And there's a lot of thread that is going to be through these holes of the round duo bead. Sew through that top hole of the round duo bead. Kind of flip it over here so you can see. And out. This is going to be the same exact steps for all the components adding in all of my little fleur-de-lis for the design. So I'm going to continue on now with the design. And to continue with the design, I'm going to show you guys, all you're going to do is basically create that center Monty again by taking your needle that's on the right hand side, adding a 15-0 and sewing into the bottom hole of the RounDuo. Needle on the left, add a 15-0, just one, and sew into the bottom hole of the RounDuo. That's going to cover up the holes on the side. And then what I want to do is add my Monty. When you're adding your Monty this time, you want to make sure that the Monty is facing up and in the correct fashion. So you're going to take your Monty, add it on one side with a 15-0 before and after. Let it sit there, and I'm going to pick up the other needle, add a 15, grab the Monty so that you make sure that it's sitting face up, and sew through that other hole of the Monty. In this case, I grabbed the whole other bracelet. You can then push the Monty up next to the project because it's going to be sitting correctly. You don't want the Monty sitting opposite. That would be sad. From there, I put a 15-0 on after, give a tight little yank, grab my next of my RounDuo beads, and crisscross through the first hole with one needle going right to left and the other going left to right. From here, then again, all we're going to do is add our 11 seed beads. Just like we did previously, add the 11 seed beads, sewing into the second hole of the RounDuo before. Continue on adding your beads and increasing your length. So I'm at the end of the design, and I ended up with 12 of my RounDuos. It's going to be a little bit big on my wrist because the clasp is still going to take up a fair amount of room. So you can get away with anywhere kind of from 11 to 13 of them. But what I'm going to do here is show you guys how to do the clasp bend, because I've gotten to the point where I have my 15-0s on either side and I'm coming out my last RounDuo bead. I don't want to do another grouping, adding a Monty or so. If you want to start though with a Monty, if you don't have enough RounDuos, you can start with a Monty on each end instead. But what we're going to be doing is actually making a loop for our button to fit in. And because most of the design is peyote, we're actually going to stick with peyote and continue to create using the peyote stitch. On each needle, both right and left, I want you to put 3 of your 15-0 seed beads. And this is kind of a good opportunity always, usually, to kind of clean up your bead mat too, or your bead board. I'm going to let those drop down on our project then. And we're basically repeating what we did on the starter side. So we've got 3 beads on either end of the RounDuo there. From there, I'm going to crisscross through an 11-0. So we're taking one needle through the 11-0 in one direction and one through the 11-0 in the other direction. What that's going to do is make that little V right after the RounDuo, just like we did at the start. From here, with my right needle, I'm going to go ahead and pick up about 27 of my 11-0 seed beads. So I'm going to pick up a bunch of those, kind of clearing up my bead board here, which got knocked a little bit, so my beads are all in a pile. And if you happen to have one side of your thread that's longer than the other, you can always just do this with the long side of thread. I'm going to continue then picking up all my beads. Keep going until I get my 27 on. once you have your beads on, you want to make sure if you did use a different button or clasp closure, that however many beads you used are going to be big enough to go through the cup button. A lot of times too, if I'm using sparkles and kind of shine like this, I'll glue a Potomac crystal Rivoli, a 10mm round, into the cup button. So that definitely you're going to use a couple more beads as well for that. But once those 27 beads are on, I'm going to sew back through the 11/0 that my thread was coming out of, kind of that crisscross point, and get that nice V. That needle then I'm just going to stick down. If you happen to have, like I said, not a lot of thread on one side of the needle, you can pick up that needle. That's up to you, and just continue with that one rather than picking up the needle on the other side. What I'm going to do now is kind of hold on to that first thread, and just like we've been doing with the peyote stitch, I'm going to be adding 8/0 seed beads on the outside in a peyote stitch fashion, going around the circle of the 11s, adding in the 8/0s. So I'm going to go around the whole thing now, add in my 8/0 seed beads, and then we'll actually kind of mimic what the design is, and we'll add in some 11/0 seed beads, one more pass around with the peyote stitch. So once I come around after adding in my 8/0s, I'm just going to continue with that peyote stitch, going through the original 11 as well as the 8/0 seed bead. So just like I've been kind of doing with that whole step up process. And I'm doing this just so it looks identical to the bracelet and really kind of completes it nicely. If you want to, you could just do a simple loop. But I'm going to go through now just like our bracelet, and in between every 8/0 seed bead, I'm going to add in 2 of the 11/0s. So you're just going around in a circle, doing what you've been doing. If you want to, you could have also started the circle with those gold seed beads in the middle, starting with some 15/0s rather than jumping right to the 8s. That's kind of up to you. But I'm going to go around my circle now, adding in my 11/0 seed beads. The nice thing about this also is that it's really reinforcing this loop and this clasp, because the peyote stitch is going to be a lot less likely to ever break than just a single strand of beads that are going to hook on to the button. I'm going through here, finishing up, adding in those pretty 15s in the gold color, coming the whole way around. And as I add in the last of the champagne beads here, I'm going to then tie off my thread. So I have my thread kind of coming out that last 8/0 seed bead, and what I'm going to do is step down just like we've been doing, because I don't want the knot to be right along the very end. I'm going to bring it back to one of the sides of the round duos. So the needle that I am using, I'm going to go back through then, stepping down the 11/0 as well as the 11/0 that I crisscrossed through. And then from there, I'm going to come down the 11/0s on that left-hand side. Go ahead then and take the thread and the needle on that left-hand side and bring it over to the right. The needle then that's on the right-hand side coming through that 11/0, so the one that was kind of just sitting there, I'm going down the 3 11s on the right and coming out right towards the other thread. From here, very simple. I'm just going to take the 2 threads, and this is how I added thread as well in the project, because I ended up using about 14 feet of beading thread. So I had to add in 2 different places. I just brought the thread and needle to one side of my RounDuo beads, simply tied some square knots right over left, and then left over right. And then from there, burned off a new piece of thread off my spool, put a needle on each end, and just sewed through one of the RounDuos and started as if it was new thread. From here, after you tie your knot, pick up your burner, just like so, heat up that burner, and burn down through the thread ends. What I like to do then is take those thread ends, you can kind of see them hanging out right there. And I'll make this a little clearer for you guys. And I want to take those thread ends and burn them down. What that's going to do is create a little bit of a blunt end and prevent that knot from coming apart. So if you wanted to, you could have glued there as well. But once you are finished, that Fleur-Des Duos is finished, and it is fun and bright and shiny and sparkly, and it has that great look of peyote. And hopefully you guys have a chance to make this one. It's a really fun bracelet designed by Gianna. If you ever need any of the materials, again, at the beginning of the video, we have that little link for you guys, that little eye in the top right-hand corner. Also below the video are the details of the video, say what they're about. You can click on there and get the list to the different products as well. So I want to thank Gianna for a fun RounDuo design featuring a lot of that peyote look, and then adding in kind of the Montees and doing that sparkle on my So thank you so much for allowing me to do your video. I hope you guys enjoy it and have fun creating. Also, if you like this YouTube video, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel to get regular updates on products that we have new and available to you guys, like the RounDuos, as well as different projects that we do, like this bracelet. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Also ask to become a member of our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. It's a great interactive group there of people that love to make jewelry, love designing, can answer questions, give advice, and spring ideas to off of one another. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you, Gianna, for this fun design. And enjoy everybody making this Fleur-Des Duos